Are you or someone you know looking to buy or sell a home? When you use a HomeGain Realtor to buy or sell a home, you can get $150. Visit HomeGain.com and click on the Promo 150 banner at the top of the page to get started. Compare HomeGain Realtors and choose your favorite. Complete your home purchase or sale transaction with a HomeGain Realtor, and HomeGain will pay you $150. Get started today by going to HomeGain.com. Welcome back, Washington, D.C. Metro to Real Estate 360 Live. I'm your host, Ryan Sloper, joined today by my guest, Louis Cammarosano, the general manager of HomeGain. Quick reminder, Real Estate 360 is designed to build the Washington, D.C. Metro's housing and credit markets one house at a time. If you ever have any questions, concerns, or real estate needs, the best number to reach out to us is 877-245-2030. That's 877-245-2030. Whether it's finance-related, real estate-related, credit-related, whatever it may be, feel free to reach out to us. And if you don't want to call the off-air number, feel free to reach us via the web at realestate360live.com. That's realestate360live.com. It was interesting before the break, we were talking about Warren Buffett and basically, you know, his views on gold and that, you know, he doesn't believe that you really, it's not something that he would invest in. But one of the other things that was actually in Warren Buffett's shareholder letter was that he finally thinks that it is now the time to buy real estate. As he puts it, and I quote, "People may postpone hitching up during uncertain times, but eventually hormones take over, and while doubling up may be the initial reaction of some during a recession, living with in-laws can quickly lose its allure." And really, I mean, I don't know what took him so long to realize that, you know, buying real estate at these ultra-low interest rates would be a good financial decision. I mean, I'm sure he's probably known that for a while.
Well, he said it 2 or 3 years ago, too, and he had to admit that he was a little ahead of the game there, that it really wasn't the right time 2 or 3 years ago because we've had price declines since then.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, and I think that...
He can keep saying that, and eventually he'll be right. There will be a right time to buy real estate.
Right, and then he'll look like, you know, he's the one that led everybody to the water, right?
Right.
It is interesting because, you know, there's always a good time for certain people to buy real estate, Louis. You know what I mean? There's always a good investment in different places depending upon what people are buying, depending on the price, depending on what the cost is, and depending upon, you know, if it's a rental, what they're able to rent it out for. A good example is this 14-year-old girl in Florida bought a foreclosure. Now, while the Florida law states that they can't physically have ownership until they're 18, she split it with her mother. They actually bought this 679 square foot, I want to say it was like a concrete block of a house, and they bought it for, I want to say at auction for like $12,000. This girl, Willow Tufano, her mother was a real estate broker, and she had basically, I guess her mom had a lot of foreclosure listings and whatnot, and a lot of investors were buying them up. She was going in and taking any of the furnishings that were still in these homes and selling them online. So I guess over a period of time, she's, you know, got a lot of cash sitting there. So she's like, oh, you know, I'll go in with you, Mom. So they bought it for $12,000. She put in $6,000. Her mom put in $6,000. They're renting out this place for $700 a month. Okay. So how quickly is she going to recoup her money? And for a long-term investment, I mean, it doesn't get much better than that. $12,000. People are always going to have a place to live. So, you know, as long as the condition of this home, and they're, you know, obviously you have to take into account the cost of maintenance and stuff that you have to keep up with. But this is a great opportunity. Now, these opportunities are all over the place in the United States. I mean, especially in areas like Florida, Arizona, Nevada. There's tremendous opportunities with home prices that are substantially lower than the rest of the country. I mean, we're talking sub $100,000 for a home. In some cases, $50,000, $60,000 that you could rent for $800 or $900 a month.
Real homes.
Real homes, exactly. And I mean, these places, the reason why a lot of them are low is because they're in those areas, there's not as many willing and able buyers to buy them. So what ends up happening is that the prices have to be reduced. You have more of the investors that come in and swoop these properties up. So, you know, your average Joe's credit's been hurt because they lost their job, or they had a decrease in pay and were unable to keep up with the payments. So the bank didn't want to work out a modification. So they ended up foreclosing, or they ended up short selling. So that put them out of buying for a couple of years. So when that house now goes to market, it really only leaves open the people that still have jobs, or the investors out there that are just looking to get their hands on anything and everything they can. For this 14-year-old girl, it's going to be a good long-term investment. And, this is just an example, though, of there's plenty of these stories going on across the country about people that are buying properties. And even for you out there that might be thinking, well, maybe I have this extra money. Maybe I should invest in real estate. I said, well, it's worth considering. It definitely is worth considering because of what else is out there. You have to look at all your options. But, if the return on investment's correct and you're going to lock in a long-term 30-year fixed interest rate to protect yourself from future investment. You already got a primary and you want to buy a second home or another future investment property, and you can lock in these interest rates at the all-time lows that we have now. It probably does make sense. I mean, I think that the important part is buying at the right price, locking in a long-term low interest rate, and knowing what you can get for rent in the specific area that you want to buy.
It's a totally different dynamic than, 5-6 years ago where you took the ARM and you waited for price appreciation.
Yeah, exactly. And in those cases, what happened when, the ARMs adjusted and we didn't get the appreciation, people were stuck and like, well, what am I going to do now?
Right. Now, in this case, you're not really stuck.
Nope.
Because you're not going to get a lower interest rate. You can always refi if you had to. You're
in the driver's seat. And, Louis, you and I talked. We've seen these rapidly increasing rental rates of I think is going to continue increasing for the next couple of years. And if you're one of those people that happen to have one of these investment properties renting out to people, let's see, 1 year you might be renting for $2,000. 5 years from now, you might be renting out for $2,500 to $2,700, and your payment stays the same.
Right, and there already is a psychological shift amongst there's a percentage shift against home ownership, which means that those people believe more in renting. Well, if there's more people that are interested in renting, that's going to put upward pressure on rental prices.
Yep.
So you buy and then you rent it out, and you capture that upside in rent.
Yeah, and everybody seems to think like, because a lot of the people have taken an approach, they soured on the overall real estate market, and they're like, I'm just going to live with parents or friends. And then eventually that gets old, and they're like, well, I don't want to live with them anymore, so now what are my options? They get out there and they realize, wow, it's not like I thought it was going to be. Their options are now you're going to pay, let's just make, numbers, $1,500 for a one-bedroom apartment. Or I could buy a condo and have my payment as $1,600.
Right, but some people are not going to make that choice, and they're going to be they're going to be put off by home ownership because of what has happened to their friends and relatives with foreclosures. They're going to rent, and that's fine because the smarter people will then buy the ones that it makes sense to buy because the cost is cheaper than renting, and then for the investors, they'll pick up the renters.
Yeah, and and the important part here, Louis, is that everybody can be that smart person if they choose to be. The information's out there. They just need to be working with professionals that understand these markets, understand, what the long-term finance costs, what that does is as far as locking themselves into a long-term fixed rate versus having rent locked in for a year that can fluctuate from year to year, and how that's going to affect their long-term financial ability to do things.
Right, but if you think about it, Ryan, the people that make money in real estate, the stock market, are not the ones that are following what everybody else is doing, but the ones that really see a special opportunity and they take advantage of a market inefficiency where there is an opportunity, but not everyone is taking advantage of it. The worst time to invest is when everyone's taking advantage of what is a perceived opportunity, and that's when you get overbought situations like a housing bubble or a stock market bubble. The smart people, are the ones who manage to spot the real opportunity that no one else sees. Yeah, once everyone else sees it, it's already overpriced.
Yep, I totally agree with you, and it's interesting you bring that up because I want to say it was probably 2.5, 3 years ago when I first started, investigating because my dad and I invest in real estate as well in non-performing notes and things of that nature, but we had heard that there was a lot of obviously a lot of non-performing notes that were out there, and that these hedge funds were buying up non-performing notes from the FDIC and from other banks that just wanted to get rid of the stuff instead of foreclosing. Well, you didn't really see any of that in a newspaper, did you? I mean, that was nowhere to be found. One of the largest hedge funds was the ex-CEO of Countrywide, who started a hedge fund to buy the same bad loans that he was making in the first place. So, these things are out there. Now, there's a lot more players in the non-performing note market, but there's still not as many people as you would think. But as soon as that starts making front page news, then you got something to worry about. That's exactly what you're getting at.
Right.
And there's a lot of opportunities. And I think even for, people out there, you don't necessarily to buy an investment property, you don't necessarily have to get like the rock bottom price, like 50 cents on the dollar, for it to make sense for you. I mean, I think a lot of people, Louis, get so caught up in the price of everything that they don't, they don't really take into consideration the long-term cost of things.
Right. They know the price of everything and the value of nothing. And it's the same thing you see with your clients. They're always looking to find the absolute bottom interest rate.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's interesting because there's been a lot of different studies on where interest rates are going. And I'm going to give you three different things. One from HSH.com, which explains a better economic climate almost always brings higher rates, and a lessening of the troubles in Europe from massive central bank assistance adds to the movement of money from safe havens to more risky assets, driving rates upward. That's exactly what's going on right now. Dan Green of the Daily Market Report stated the Fed sees growth coming faster than originally expected. There's suddenly less chance that the Federal Reserve will intervene to help keep mortgage rates low. Absent Fed intervention, mortgage rates are apt to rise, and Wall Street is now betting that the Fed is bowed out. With no stimulus, mortgage rates rise. And then Lawrence Yun, chief economist for National Association of Realtors, recently wrote, mortgage rates will be starting to rise from 3.9 to 4% average rate in the past 5 months on a 30-year fixed mortgage. The new rates will soon be in the range of 4.3 to 4.6%. They're already forecasting interest rates going up. You and I, Louis, we've been wrong for the last year or so, saying that we thought that it was going to happen sooner rather than later. But I think that we're actually finally starting to see that move, and I think that the markets are actually seeing the light here that these rates are not where they're supposed to be.
And you've pointed out that once they start to move, they move
quickly.
rapidly.
Yeah, last week we lost a quarter of a point, just like that. And people are saying, well, what happened? Well, I told you, it only takes one little remark from the Fed or anybody for that matter, and the media takes and they twist it and turn it, and now all of a sudden we've got long-term homeownership costs that are probably could change your long-term cost by $10,000 to $20,000 over the life of that loan.
And a quarter point when you're in the 4% range or sub 4% range is really a 6-7% increase in cost.
Absolutely.
I mean, a quarter point when it's 8 or 9% is not as much of a big deal.
And that's where the end all with that is just don't be too greedy. Go ahead and lock your interest rate in. We're up on a break. When we come back, time for the Credit Fix segment. Why there's so many errors on people's credit reports and what you can do to get them corrected when we come back.